My name is Victoria and Brennan. I'm 29 years old, and exactly 47 minutes after I asked a simple question at Sunday dinner, my entire family went completely silent, and I realized I'd been invisible to them for my entire life. Did anyone pick up my prescription from the pharmacy? I asked casually, setting down my fork beside my plate of half-eaten roast chicken. My mother didn't even look up from cutting her vegetables. My stepfather Derek continued methodically working on his steak. But my sister Olivia, the golden child, the one who could do absolutely no wrong in anyone's eyes, actually laughed out loud, a sharp sound that cut through the comfortable dinner conversation. "We got mine instead," she said casually, twirling her wine glass and watching the red liquid swirl. "Your antidepressants can wait another day, Victoria. My birth control is obviously more important." The words hung in the air like poison gas, suffocating and toxic. Nobody corrected her statement. Nobody jumped to my defense. Nobody even flinched at the casual cruelty of what she just said. My stepfather Derek actually nodded slightly in agreement, as if this prioritization made perfect logical sense. My mother Caroline simply continued eating, her fork moving from plate to mouth with mechanical precision, as though nothing remotely inappropriate had been said at her dinner table. That's when I felt it, something fundamental cracking deep inside my chest like ice under unbearable pressure, splitting and fracturing in ways that couldn't be repaired. In that single moment of casual dismissal, 3 years of careful documentation suddenly made perfect sense. What they didn't know, what none of them had any idea about, was that I had been keeping meticulous records for the past 3 years of every single instance where I was forgotten, overlooked, or treated as less important than my sister. The spreadsheet saved on my laptop contained exactly 247 documented entries, each one a small wound that had accumulated into something devastating. Before I explain what happened in the days following that dinner, let me know where you're viewing from in the comment section below, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever been the forgotten child in your own family, the one who was always expected to understand while someone else got all the attention and priority. To really understand why that particular moment at the dinner table shattered something irreparable inside me, you'd have to go back exactly 6 years to the autumn when my mother married Derek Thompson. I was 23 years old, fresh out of college with a marketing degree, struggling to find my professional footing in a brutally competitive job market. Olivia was just 18, still finishing her senior year of high school, and somehow from the very first week, she instantly became Derek's clear priority and favorite. It wasn't even subtle. The pattern started small, almost imperceptible at first. Derek would ask detailed questions about Olivia's day every single evening when he got home from work, listening intently to long stories about high school drama club rehearsals, college application stress, and friend group dynamics. He'd nod thoughtfully, offer advice, engage completely with whatever she shared. When I mentioned landing an important interview for my first real job in my field, he looked up from his phone for maybe 5 seconds before his eyes drifted back to the screen. "That's nice, Victoria," he'd say in a flat, disinterested voice that made it clear he wasn't actually listening. "Good for you." My mother, Caroline, had always favored Olivia in subtle ways throughout our childhood. The prettier daughter with the outgoing personality, the social butterfly who made her look good at parent-teacher conferences and neighborhood gatherings. But after marrying Derek, that subtle favoritism transformed into something explicit and undeniable. They formed this tight, exclusive unit, the 3 of them, laughing at inside jokes, planning activities together, creating a family structure where I existed only on the periphery. I became an afterthought in what was supposedly my own family, a visitor in the home where I'd grown up. The first time I truly felt the sting of this new dynamic was at Christmas that first year. We gathered around the tree on Christmas morning, and Olivia opened gift after gift after gift. A brand new MacBook Pro for college, expensive designer clothes from stores I couldn't afford to shop in, concert tickets to see her favorite bands, delicate jewelry that sparkled under the tree lights. My mother and Derek beamed with obvious pride as she squealed with delight and hugged them enthusiastically after each present. When it was finally my turn, I received a $50 gift card to Target and a self-help book I had specifically mentioned I wasn't interested in reading. "We figured you were too practical for fancy stuff," my mother explained with a dismissive wave, completely missing the hurt that must have been visible in my eyes. "You're not really a jewelry person anyway." My best friend Andrea saw the dysfunction clearly from her outside perspective. "Your family treats you like hired help," she told me bluntly one night over drinks at our favorite bar. "You're just there to be convenient, to not make waves, to celebrate Olivia's achievements without expecting any recognition for your own accomplishments." "They're family," I protested weakly, still not ready to fully acknowledge what was happening. "It's just their dynamic. Every family is different." "No," Andrea said firmly, her voice leaving no room for argument. "It's emotional neglect, Victoria, and you deserve so much better than what they're giving you." But I wasn't ready to hear that truth yet, wasn't prepared to face what accepting it would mean. So I kept trying harder, kept hoping that eventually they'd notice my efforts, kept sacrificing pieces of myself thinking that one day they'd finally appreciate everything I did and see me as clearly as they saw Olivia. By the time I turned 25, I had settled into a decent job as a project coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. The pay was modest but stable, enough to cover my rent and expenses with a little left over for savings. That same year, Olivia started attending an expensive private university across the state, the kind of school with a prestigious name and tuition costs that made my state school look like a bargain. My mother and Derek struggled visibly to afford it, constantly stressed about finances. That's precisely when the requests for money started coming my way with increasing frequency. "Victoria, honey, could you possibly lend us $800? My mother asked me one afternoon, her voice carefully casual as if she were asking to borrow a cup of sugar. "Just until Derek's year-end bonus comes through next month. Olivia desperately needs textbooks for her classes, and the campus bookstore doesn't offer any kind of payment plan option." I transferred the money that same day without hesitation, wanting to help my family. The promised bonus apparently never materialized, or if it did, the money was never returned to me. 3 weeks later, I saw Olivia's Instagram posts from an elaborate spring break trip to a beach resort in Cancun. Photos of her and friends with cocktails, sunset dinners, parasailing adventures. "Much-needed getaway before finals," the caption read, followed by a row of celebratory emojis. When I was 26, after a particularly brutal 6-month period at work filled with impossible deadlines and a toxic manager, I was diagnosed with clinical depression and generalized anxiety disorder. My therapist prescribed medication that helped stabilize my mood, but it was expensive, $140 per month, even with my insurance coverage. I mentioned this financial burden to my mother once during a phone call, hoping perhaps for some emotional support, if not actual financial help. "Oh, that's really rough," she said in a distracted tone, clearly scrolling through something on her phone while we talked. "I'm sorry you're dealing with that. Oh, look at this gorgeous dress Olivia just sent me a picture of. She wants it for her sorority's formal next month. Isn't it absolutely beautiful?" The medication conversation ended there abruptly, never to be revisited. She never once asked how I was managing the monthly cost, never checked whether the treatment was actually working, never inquired about my mental health journey again. But she texted me multiple times daily with detailed updates about Olivia's social calendar, sorority activities, dating life, and wardrobe choices. My 27th birthday fell on a Tuesday in March. I had taken the day off work, secretly hoping that maybe my family would want to do something small to acknowledge the occasion, dinner together, coffee and cake, anything to mark the day. I waited all day for a text message, a phone call, any kind of acknowledgement. At 9:47 p.m., long after I'd given up hope, my mother finally sent a brief text. "Happy birthday, sweetie. So sorry, it's been an absolutely crazy day. Olivia had a major crisis with her roommate situation, and we've been dealing with the fallout all day. Rain check on celebrating your birthday." The promised rain check never materialized. But exactly 2 months later, for Olivia's 23rd birthday, they rented out an expensive private room at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, invited 30 of her friends and family members, hired a photographer, and posted dozens of professionally lit photos on social media celebrating their beautiful, accomplished, amazing daughter, with glowing captions about how proud they were of everything she'd achieved. That painful birthday disparity was the year I started keeping the detailed spreadsheet. Initially, it was purely therapeutic, a way to validate my own feelings and experiences, to prove to myself that I wasn't being crazy or oversensitive or imagining the imbalance. But as the entries accumulated week after week, month after month, a pattern emerged so clear and undeniable that even I, who'd been making excuses for them for years, couldn't possibly ignore it anymore. Andrea had been pushing me for months to establish firm boundaries. "You need to stop being constantly available for them," she insisted during one of our regular coffee meetups. "They only ever call you when they need something from you. They're using you." She was absolutely right, though I resisted accepting it. Between the ages of 25 and 28, I had loaned my mother and Derek a total of $6,340 that was never repaid, 12 separate emergency requests that all somehow ended up funding non-emergencies. I had spent approximately 180 hours helping Olivia with various projects, apartment moves, and manufacture crises. I had missed 7 important work events and networking opportunities to attend Olivia's college activities that she barely acknowledged my presence at. I had given up my apartment's guest room for 4 months straight when Olivia claimed she needed space from her perfectly fine apartment and roommate situation. I had paid for 3 separate emergency veterinary visits for the family dog, totaling $2,100, because they were supposedly tight on cash that particular week. And what had I received in return for all this time? Money and sacrifice. They had forgotten my birthday completely twice, missed or dismissed every single work achievement I tried to share with them, and never once offered any kind of help when I was struggling with my own challenges. When I got severe food poisoning and spent 2 days alone in my apartment vomiting and unable to keep anything down, my mother's response to my text asking for help was, "Oh no, feel better soon. Listen, totally different subject, but can you pick up Olivia from the airport next Thursday afternoon? Her flight gets in at 3:15. The breaking point started building in the months immediately before that fateful Sunday dinner. Small incidents that weren't actually small at all, they just appeared that way on the surface. In July, I was hospitalized overnight with a severe kidney infection that had me doubled over in pain. I texted my mother from the emergency room at 2:30 a.m., genuinely scared and in agony, hoping she'd come sit with me. She finally responded at 11:15 a.m. the next morning. "Oh no, that sounds terrible. Hope you're feeling okay now. Listen, completely unrelated, but Olivia needs your professional opinion on her resume for a job application. Can you look it over sometime this week? No. Are you still in the hospital? No. Do you need me to bring you anything? No, I'm coming right now." Just an immediate pivot to Olivia's needs, as if my medical emergency was merely an inconvenient interruption to the really important matter of my sister's resume. In August, I finally received the promotion I'd been working toward for 2 solid years, senior project manager with a 15% salary increase and my own team to manage. I was thrilled, proud of myself for the first time in months. I excitedly called my mother to share this significant career milestone. "Oh, that's wonderful, honey," she said with obviously manufactured enthusiasm that didn't reach her voice. "That's really great news. Hold on one second. Olivia's calling on the other line, and it might be something important." She never called me back that day. When I saw her 3 days later at a family dinner, she didn't mention my promotion, even once during the entire evening. But she spent 45 uninterrupted minutes showing me dozens of photos from Olivia's weekend trip to wine country with her friends, narrating every detail of every meal and vineyard they'd visited. In September, I asked whether anyone in the family wanted to attend my company's annual gala event. I had been nominated for an innovation award that was a pretty big deal in my industry. "Oh, we'd absolutely love to come, sweetie," my mother said quickly. But unfortunately, that's the exact same weekend as Olivia's sorority reunion event. We already committed to attending that with her weeks ago. I didn't end up winning the award, which somehow felt fitting given everything else. I sat at a table surrounded by colleagues and their supportive families, parents, spouses, siblings who had driven hours to attend, and I was the only person there completely alone. The weight of my family's indifference felt crushing, like a physical pressure on my chest, making it hard to breathe normally. In October, the prescription incident at the pharmacy happened, but it wasn't actually the first time they prioritized Olivia's medication over mine. 3 months earlier, they picked up Olivia's routine allergy medication while completely forgetting about my prescription for antibiotics I desperately needed. When I mentioned it later that evening, Derek had actually sighed with audible annoyance, as if my medical needs were an inconvenience he hadn't budgeted time for in his busy schedule. By November, I had reached a point of crystalline clarity. I wasn't consumed with anger anymore, at least not in those moments. I was simply done. Completely done hoping they'd magically change. Done sacrificing myself for barely acknowledged crumbs of recognition. Done being the family member they only remembered when they needed something. I spent Thanksgiving at Andrea's house with her warm, functional family, claiming to my mother that I had to work. My mother's text message that Thanksgiving morning was revealing. Wish you could be here with us. Olivia brought her new boyfriend Marcus, and he's absolutely wonderful. Family photos won't be quite the same without you, though. They took the family photos anyway, of course. I saw them posted on Facebook the next day. Nobody in those smiling group shots looked like they were missing me at all. The empty space, where I would have stood, had closed up seamlessly, as if I'd never been part of the family picture to begin with. The confrontation happened 2 weeks later, at that Sunday dinner, with my simple question about medication and Olivia's dismissive, cruel response that nobody corrected or challenged. By the time I got home to my apartment that night, I had made my final decision. I opened my laptop with shaking hands and pulled up the detailed spreadsheet I'd been maintaining. All 247 entries documenting every instance of being overlooked, every broken promise, every financial exploitation, every emotional dismissal. I spent the next 4 hours creating a comprehensive summary presentation, charts showing the shocking disparity in attention, time, and financial resources between how they treated me versus Olivia. A detailed financial breakdown showing the $6,340 I'd loaned and never been repaid, plus another $3,890 I'd spent covering things they'd asked me to pay for temporarily. The numbers were devastating when viewed all together. 247 documented incidents spread across 1,095 days. That's one incident every 4.4 days where I was made to feel less important, less valued, less worthy of love and attention than my sister. At exactly 11:58 p.m., I sent a message to the family group chat. I need to have a serious conversation with all 3 of you. Tomorrow evening, 6 p.m., at my apartment. This is not optional, and it's not about money. It's about something much more important than money. My mother responded within 60 seconds. Is everything okay? You're scaring me. We'll discuss everything tomorrow, I replied firmly, then powered off my phone completely. Monday, I spent the entire day preparing. I printed out key documents from my spreadsheet, not all 247 entries, but the most damning and undeniable ones. Text message threads showing their dismissiveness, screenshots of social media posts, financial records, medical emergency timelines, everything organized in neat folders. At 5:45 p.m., I arranged my dining table like a professional conference room, printed documents in labeled folders for each person. My laptop opened to the master spreadsheet, a box of tissues on the side table. The doorbell rang at precisely 6 p.m. My mother, Derek, and Olivia entered looking confused and visibly annoyed, as if this meeting was an unwelcome interruption. "What's this all about, Victoria?" my mother asked, eyeing the formal setup nervously. "This seems unnecessarily dramatic." "Please sit down," I said calmly, gesturing to the chairs I'd arranged. They sat reluctantly, exchanging worried glances with each other. Olivia immediately pulled out her phone, not even pretending to give me her full attention. "For the past 3 years," I began, my voice remarkably steady and controlled, "I have been carefully documenting our family dynamic. What I discovered was a pattern so consistent and so painful that I can no longer ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist." I slid the prepared folders across the table toward them. These are detailed summaries. The complete records with all supporting documentation are on my laptop if anyone would like to review them in full. My mother opened her folder first, her facial expression shifting rapidly from confusion to growing concern as she scanned the printed pages. Derek's jaw visibly tightened. Olivia barely glanced at the contents of hers before pushing the folder away dismissively. "This is absolutely ridiculous," Olivia said with a harsh laugh. "You actually made a spreadsheet tracking our family? That's genuinely psychotic behavior, Victoria." "Is it psychotic?" I replied evenly, meeting her eyes directly. "Or is it simply the only way to make you finally see what you've been doing to me for years?" What we've been doing, my mother said defensively, her voice rising. Victoria, we've always supported you and been there for you. Have you? I interrupted sharply, clicking to display the first slide on my laptop screen, a detailed chart showing time spent on each daughter. In the past 3 years, you have attended exactly 7 of Olivia's college events, recitals, games, sorority functions. You attended precisely 0 of my work events, including the evening I was nominated for a significant innovation award in my industry. We had scheduling conflicts, Derek started to explain. You had 18 documented scheduling conflicts for my events. I cut in, showing the next chart. But only 2 conflicts for Olivia's events. And those 2 times, you proactively rescheduled her events to make absolutely sure you could attend. You never once rescheduled or made any effort to attend mine. The room had gone completely silent except for the clicking sound of my keyboard as I advanced through the presentation slides. Next came the financial data, the $6,340 in unpaid loans, broken down meticulously by exact date and the stated reason they'd given for needing the money. August 2021, you asked for $800 for Olivia's required textbooks. September 2021, Olivia posted photos from her spring break trip to Cancun. January 2022, you asked for $1,200 for Derek's emergency car repair. March 2022, Derek posted photos of his new set of golf clubs that cost exactly $1,200. Should I continue with more examples? My mother's face had drained of all color. We fully intended to pay you back eventually. It's been 3 years, Mom, I said flatly. The most recent loan was just 6 months ago. $650 for what you called an emergency veterinary bill. But I called the vet's office. They have no record of any emergency visit that month. However, I did find a Facebook post from Derek about a $650 purchase at an electronics store that same exact weekend. Derek's face flushed an angry red. You've been spying on us, investigating us. I've been documenting publicly available information that you voluntarily posted online and comparing it to what you've told me directly. I corrected calmly. That's not spying. That's simple fact-checking. Olivia stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. This is completely insane. I'm not sitting here listening to you accuse everyone of. Sit down, Olivia, I said, my voice suddenly like steel. We are not finished yet. Something in my tone made her hesitate, then slowly sink back into her chair, looking unsettled. I clicked to the next section, medical issues and emergencies. A detailed timeline of every time I'd needed help or support, contrasted sharply with their responses. July 2023, I was hospitalized overnight with a severe kidney infection. Mom's response time, 8 hours and 45 minutes after my initial text from the ER. Her message didn't ask how I was doing or if I needed anything. It asked if I could help Olivia with her resume. I looked directly at my mother, holding eye contact. September 2023, Olivia had a mild cold. You personally drove 40 minutes to her apartment to bring her soup and medicine. You stayed for 5 hours taking care of her. When I had the exact same cold 3 weeks later, you sent a brief text saying, "Feel better," and never checked on me again. That's not fair, my mother protested weakly. Olivia was living alone in her apartment. I live alone too, Mom, I pointed out quietly. But apparently my solitude doesn't warrant the same level of concern or care. The final, most devastating slide appeared. A side-by-side comparison of birthday celebrations for the past 3 years. Olivia's showed professional photos from restaurant parties, elaborate decorations, multiple family members in attendance, thoughtful expensive gifts. Mine showed either complete absence or the most token acknowledgement possible. My 27th birthday, I said, my voice finally cracking slightly with emotion. You forgot about it completely until 9:47 p.m. Your excuse was that Olivia had a roommate crisis that required your attention all day. 2 months later, for Olivia's 23rd birthday, you threw an elaborate party for 30 people at an expensive restaurant. The silence in the room was absolutely suffocating. I could see my mother's hands physically trembling as she clutched the papers. Derek stared at the table surface, completely unable to meet my eyes. Olivia looked defiant but distinctly uncomfortable. Yesterday at dinner, I continued, my voice dropping lower. You picked up Olivia's birth control prescription from the pharmacy, but not my prescribed antidepressant medication. Olivia stated, and I'm quoting her exact words, "Your antidepressants can wait another day. My birth control is more important." I looked around the table at each of them, and not a single one of you corrected her. Nobody said no. Actually, Victoria's medication is equally important and she needs it. You all simply accepted it as an obvious fact that her needs outweigh mine. My mother's eyes were filling with tears that began spilling down her cheeks. "We honestly didn't mean to hurt you like this. I need you to understand something fundamental," I said, cutting her off. "This isn't about any single incident in isolation. It's about a consistent, documented pattern of behavior spanning multiple years where I have been systematically treated as less important, less valuable, and less worthy of your time, attention, care, and financial resources than Olivia." I clicked to the final summary slide, a simple statement in large bold text. 247 incidents across 1,095 days. One incident every 4.4 days. The number seemed to physically impact them. Even Olivia looked genuinely shaken for the first time. "I don't hate any of you," I said, my voice tired now. "But I can't continue doing this to myself. I can't keep breaking my own heart repeatedly, hoping you'll finally see me, finally value me, finally treat me like I matter as much as Olivia clearly does to you." "Of course you matter to us," my mother started desperately. "Then show me through your actions," I said simply. "Don't just tell me I matter while simultaneously demonstrating through every single behavior that I don't." I pulled out one final document. "Moving forward, if you want any kind of relationship with me, here are my non-negotiable terms. 1. No more loans or financial emergencies that never get repaid. 2. My medical needs are not postponable for anyone's convenience. 3. My achievements and life events deserve the same acknowledgement and celebration you give Olivia. 4. When I need support, I expect the same response time and effort you give her. 5. I will no longer tolerate being interrupted, dismissed, or made invisible." "These aren't punishments," I concluded. "They're basic standards for how family members should treat each other. The fact that they feel revolutionary says everything about how dysfunctional our dynamic has become." Olivia finally snapped. "So what? You're just cutting us all off completely? Is that your plan?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm establishing boundaries. Clear, explicit boundaries I should have set years ago. Whether you choose to respect them is entirely up to you." They left shortly after, folders clutched in their hands. My mother whispered, "I'm so sorry," at the door. "Sorry isn't enough this time," I replied. "Only change behavior is." 6 months later, slow progress has been made with my mother. She's attended my work events, started repaying the loans, and responded promptly when I needed help. It's not perfect, but it's improving. Derek and I have no relationship. Olivia sent one final text. "You've destroyed this family with your selfishness. I've built a chosen family of friends who actually show up for me. I got promoted to director. I celebrate my achievements fully now. That dinner moment was a gift. It gave me the clarity to finally stop accepting unacceptable treatment. Have you been the forgotten child? Share your story below. Subscribe if you've ever had to choose yourself over toxic family. You deserve people who actually see you because you matter.